And the budget vote that's under consideration. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, before we proceed, I wish to bring the following to your attention. Honorable members, I would like to remind you that the virtual Mini-Plenary is deemed to be in the precincts of Parliament and thus constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, will apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly, and should also note that anything that is said on the platform is deemed to be said in the House and it will be ruled upon. Members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. The microphones are very sensitive and will pick up noise which may disturb other members, and when recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which is an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to raise a point of order. The Secretariat will assist me in this regard. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. We shall now proceed to the order, which is debate on vote number 30, Communications and Digital Technologies Appropriation Bill. I now recognize the Honourable Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. The Honourable Minister. Is the Honourable Minister on the platform? Can the table advise me if the Honourable Minister is on the platform?
He just left the platform, Chair.
Okay. Let's just be patient. According to the table, the Honourable Minister is on the platform. Just give me a few seconds so that we can establish what the issue is that the Minister...
He's here now.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Thank you. Honourable Minister, you may proceed.
Thanks very much, House Chairperson, honourable members, fellow South Africans. Our primary focus as the department is on actions that will focus on unlocking faster, reliable and cheaper internet for all, especially poor South Africans in rural areas and those who need it most to get jobs and provide for their families. This mission aligns with this year's theme of the World Telecommunications and Information Society Day, which is Digital Lifelines, Strengthening Resilience in a Connected World. It reflects the importance of digital infrastructure in the modern economy. Public services, education, communications, commerce, and emergency responses increasingly depend on digital systems. If these systems are not resilient, they pose a foundational risk to our day-to-day lives. South Africa has made commendable progress in the delivery of digital infrastructure. According to the recently released Digital Infrastructure Investment Study that was commissioned by the Development Bank of South Africa, the true connectivity access gap is now only 2.2% of all South Africans. But there is a critical question we must ask ourselves. Is access itself enough? The answer to that is a clear no. It is definitely not enough. In South Africa's context, digital lifelines are only true lifelines if people can reach it, afford it, understand it, and use it. What we need if we wish to truly leverage the full potential of connectivity is that access must be meaningful, not only universal. To this end, low Earth orbit satellite services also form part of South Africa's digital future. Rather than wait a decade to develop domestic LEO capacity, we must create conditions for international operators to serve our people now. in a manner that supports both national interests and regulatory compliance. Our responsibility is to ensure that new technologies expand inclusion rather than deepen inequality. Honorable members, we do this by reflecting honestly on the department's mandate as an ecosystem enabler. Our role is not to build every tower, or lay every fiber, or regulate every transaction, or deliver every digital service. Our role is to create the enabling environment for the growth of the digital economy through policy, legislation, and coordination of government and sector efforts so that we all work towards a common goal. We cannot approach this role from a perspective of control, but from a perspective of unlocking the potential of being online while protecting the vulnerable from abuse and exclusion. Where the state does have a role to play through state-owned entities, we must approach our oversight role with extreme care, act decisively where wrongdoing takes place, and provide strategic guidance to steer them towards sustainability. The digital economy is not only a standalone sector that contributes directly to economic growth, but serves as a horizontal of equity across all sectors. And policy, regulation predictable, and state-owned entities
Honorable
are
Minister,
welcome.
my apologies to interrupt you. You may switch off
Chair.
your feed because it seems to me there's a problem with your connection or bandwidth. You may continue without the video. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. To unlock growth, we must stabilize the fundamentals. This work is neither glamorous nor easy. Its results are not always immediate, but their impact will stand the test of time. Before I continue to share our plans for the year ahead, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on our progress over the past year. Last year, government removed the ad valorem excise duty on entry-level smartphones. The department partnered with the GSMA to measure the impact of this tax break. And in the 9 months prior to the tax removal, month-on-month entry-level smartphone sales declined by 7.9% per month. In comparison, between April and December of 2025, this decline was reversed, and month-on-month sales in this segment grew by 3.7%, with a clear indication that more people can now afford to substitute their feature phones for smartphones. We will be using the outcomes of this study to further consult with National Treasury to continue utilizing other fiscal tools to help increase device access. We also committed to convening a policy colloquium. This colloquium was held in October and led to the development of a comprehensive report capturing the views of industry, government, and civil society stakeholders. This report continues to inform decision-making within the department. We continue to work towards the stabilization of our entities. The State Information Technology Agency in particular has shown commendable improvement, with an unqualified audit finding now a realistic possibility. To this end, I want to thank the interim board under the leadership of Ms. Sazani Mudau for steering the ship through rough seas. We have now finalized the appointment of a new board that will be chaired by Dr. Stella Vuma. And for the first time in years, CETA also has a permanent managing director. The SABC has, for the second consecutive year, achieved an unqualified audit opinion, which marks a remarkable improvement. And the funding model study, which has been developed, and we are currently in consultation with National Treasury on the most suitable model to ensure that the public broadcaster is empowered to balance its commercial operations and public broadcasting mandate. In the 25-26 financial year, we successfully launched over 8 cyber labs in collaboration with our entities and various private sector partners, providing opportunities for transformative digital skills development for thousands of young people. For the current financial year, we will continue with these partnerships to build 10 more cyber labs. However, the past year has not been a story of success alone. While the department is making steady progress towards fully operating at the standard required to play the critical role it must play in the digital economy, some challenges remain. The long-standing issue of the analog switch-off and digital migration remains unresolved for now. And while we have teams across the country working on installations to ensure that registered households maintain access to broadcasting services, and will ensure that engagements with the broadcasters on our next steps will continue. Over the past year, we also initiated several investigations into our entities, such as USASA, NEMISA, .ZETNA, and CETA, to restore good governance practices, uphold accountability, and enforce robust oversight. And to continue with the GNU's efforts to build an ethical and capable state, we will be introducing measures to conduct lifestyle audits for the executive and board leaderships across our entities and the department. Despite seeing dividends from governance reforms implemented in the last financial year, several of our entities continue to be in a battle for survival. House Chairperson, the department's expenditure allocation for the 2026-27 financial year is 2.5 billion rands. Of that, 1.7 billion is transferred for portfolio entities. ICASA will receive 505 million. The Film and Publication Board will be allocated 112 million. The South African Post Office, 595 million allocated for the specific function of universal postal obligation, and the public broadcaster receives 234 million. House Chairperson, the budgetary constraints within our portfolio are clear and have a serious impact on the department and portfolio entities' ability to deliver on our joint mandate. But we are not the only portfolio that is affected by this. Fiscal constraints are the reality that we must deal with. And we can no longer hide behind the lack of funds to explain why we fall short of what is expected of us. Rather, we will be thinking differently about how we use what we have available to us to fulfill our mandate as best as we can. One of our greatest assets is our private sector. When working alone, our impact will always be limited. But when we partner with the private sector, we can open doors to multiply our impact. And to be clear, partnerships is not the same as privatization. But partial privatization makes sense in certain situations. We must acknowledge that we find ourselves in a position that is becoming impossible to avoid, which is the truth that 100% state ownership of our entities is no longer sustainable in the context of our fiscal reality. So we must honestly assess the need and fitness for purpose of some of the state-owned entities. Where we need them, we must ensure that they are well-run and financially sustainable. By partnering with the private sector is more than just about ownership. Where we can create mutually beneficial commercial agreements where the private sector players can leverage state-owned assets to deliver services at cost-effective prices, we will get more South Africans connected to the internet and out of poverty. And I believe it is time for us to acknowledge that it is much more important to get people connected and ensuring that they have access to affordable, reliable, and secure connectivity than who delivers that connectivity. House Chairperson, a look at the scope of investments being made in the digital sector confirms my point that government's role in connectivity provision is ripe for review. At the South African Investment Conference, private sector institutions committed 56.4 billion worth of investments across 9 confirmed mega projects in the ICT sector. This number does not include the 100 of smaller unannounced investments. This demonstrates that South Africa's appeal as a destination for digital investment is illustrated through other key statistics. South Africa ranks first on Fitch and BIM's Sub-Saharan Africa Telecommunications Risk-Reward Index. We are by some distance South Africa's most advanced data center market. But investors still view our policy environment as too interventionist and protectionist, and the fragmentation of mandates and responsibilities across the portfolio often creates opacity that hinders investment. And if our goal is to be seen as the genuine entry point into Africa, we need a far more predictable regulatory regime, investment-friendly infrastructure, and clear policy framework. Without getting these fundamentals right, we are robbing ourselves of the full potential of our digital economy. House Chairperson, while we work on stabilizing the fundamentals, we are also continuing to seek innovative ways to stimulate investment in the sector. One such opportunity is the treatment of digital infrastructure under the Real Estate Investment Trust regime. Cell phone masts, fiber networks, data centers are no longer peripheral assets, but core infrastructure on which the modern economy operates. So allowing companies that own digital infrastructure to participate in the REIT regime could unlock long-term capital, attract foreign direct investment, and provide a much-needed injection into the ICT sector. The sector has already engaged extensively with National Treasury and SARS on this matter. And as the department, we support the extension of Section 25BB of the Income Tax Act to cover digital fiber, tower, and data center infrastructure. This is a practical reform that can help us mobilize investments, expand infrastructure, and move South Africa closer to meaningful connectivity. House Chairperson, the work of stabilizing the fundamentals and investment must also be matched by a focused policy agenda for the year ahead. The central question guiding this agenda is simple. What must we do to ensure that connectivity becomes meaningful for more South Africans? The answer is that we must modernize our policy and regulatory environment so that it speaks not only to infrastructure coverage, but also to affordability, device access, digital skills, active usage, trust, and economic participation. One of the most important shifts we are making is in how we measure that connectivity. Coverage metrics remain important, but they don't tell the full story. And with support from the World Bank, we are reviewing South Africa's connectivity targets to better reflect affordability, device penetration, productive usage, and meaningful participation. House Chairperson, we can't discuss the issue of policy without touching the matter of the draft National Artificial Intelligence Policy and the revelation that generative AI was used irresponsibly during the drafting of this policy. The series of events adversely impacted the policy document, and withdrawing it was the only way to ensure that we can reintroduce a credible policy for this critical area. We will be enforcing an internal responsible AI use policy and review our policy development process to ensure that this type of occurrence does not happen again. South Africa deserves better. And today we are announcing that we'll be appointing an advisory panel to assist us with reviewing the policy. The panel will be chaired by Professor Benjamin Rosman and will be made up of distinguished experts spanning AI research and governance, including Professor Vusi Bukosi Marivate, Professor Alison Gilwald, Ms. Heather Ivan, Dr. Tsepo Fiela, Dr. Jabu Mtsweni, and Advocate Lufuno Chikalange. This distinguished group of experts will ensure that the policy we reintroduce for public comment will be based on the best available verifiable evidence and aligned with South Africa's priorities. In addition, we are in the process of finalizing the audiovisual services and media policy after receiving valuable feedback from the public. I also want to acknowledge the valuable role that the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies played in hosting a roundtable on the regulation of podcast, where we heard how important it is to avoid over-regulation of a sector that has such great potential for young people to access economic opportunity and open up sustainable livelihoods. Our legislative program must support this shift. The Electronic Communications Amendment Bill will be advanced to modernize the licensing framework, address convergence in the sector, and strengthen competition. We will also pursue legislative amendments that will enable equity equivalent investment programs to complement ownership requirements in telecommunications. My mission in this role is to ensure that ultimately every South African has access to affordable and meaningful connectivity that they can use to improve their lives. That is why we've also issued a policy direction on the rapid deployment of electronic communications facilities, which aims to reduce the cost of building new infrastructure. We are equally committed to finalizing a policy direction on wireless open access networks to create greater competition and more data for all South Africans, as well as a policy direction on the renewal of individual electronic communications network services to ensure regulatory certainty for the large number of licenses that are up for renewal in the near future. House Chairperson, a modern digital economy cannot be governed by frameworks designed for an older communications environment. I'd like to now express my appreciation to the Deputy Minister and Director General and all the staff in the department of our entities for their support in pursuing our agenda. I also want to thank the men and women of integrity in the department and our entities who continue to do their jobs in difficult circumstances where often the odds feel stacked against us. These are officials who truly embody the ethos of ethical and professional services. And for that, I thank them all. We must now move from coverage to participation and move from access to productive use. That is the work before us, and that is the work that this department will be spearheading. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is the Honorable Sangoni Diko.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable House Chair, Minister Solimalatsi, the Deputy Minister Mondli Gungubele, honorable members, industry stakeholders, fellow South Africans. Honorable House Chair, I never wanted to be a parliamentarian. I think even after the election results were gazetted with me as an MP, I remained a reluctant legislator. Despite all the respect and honor with which I hold this august house, I wanted to be a civil servant. At the coalface of delivery, making things happen tangibly every day. I could not fathom the idea that my job would be to sit and talk every day, telling those who are in the arena what must happen, how it must happen, and fighting when it was not happening. Now, almost 2 years later, I must confess that my perspective on the work of Parliament has drastically changed. The dedicated men and women who serve in the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies have proven that with passion, dedication, technical competence, and commitment, the role of Parliament is far more meaningful than many give it credit for. Over the course of the last 18 months, we have seen significant improvements in the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, and these were driven in no small measure by the consistent demands of the Portfolio Committee. For the 2026-2027 financial year, the department has presented an APP which reflects greater focus on measurable and tangible performance indicators, and one which underscores the critical role of ICTs as key enabler of service delivery, innovation, job creation, and economic competitiveness. We have also seen and welcomed the greater urgency directed towards the finalization of the SABC funding model, which once incorporated into the long-awaited SABC bill, will bring much-needed relief to the embattled public broadcaster and ease the burden on our signal distributor, Centec. Due to repeated pressure by the legislature, there have also been promising steps taken to update archaic legislation, including the Electronic Communications Act, as well as the draft policy on audio and audiovisual services. These and other such measures must be commended, as we still affirm that much more remains to be done. It is for this reason, then, that the committee has taken decisive steps to strengthen accountability and oversight on the work of the department by, amongst others, pioneering, working together with the State Information Technology Agency, SITA, a digital tracking tool called GovTrack, which will assist the committee to, in real time, keep track of the work, recommendations, and resolutions of the committee. This tool, which we hope to extend to the rest of Parliament once piloted, will automate and digitize the work of Parliament as it exercises oversight over government. House Chair, the total appropriation for this vote in 2026-27 stands at 2.49 billion rand, which is a 1.7 billion rand contraction against last year's allocation. It's an effective baseline reduction of 14.9% over the medium term. Now, the challenge is that the mandate has not shrunk, the digital divide has not been addressed, and the expectations of our people have not reduced, yet the resources have. It cannot, therefore, be business as usual. The department has to be agile in delivery and innovative in approach. The President, in the 2026 State of the Nation address, committed our country to 1 trillion rand in public infrastructure investment over the MTEF, with digital infrastructure named alongside energy and other essential systems. His Excellency further announced more than 50 billion rand of expected investment in data centers over 3 years, building on the 55 already established. Digitalization, alongside diversification and decarbonization, has been identified as one of the central organizing themes of our country's reimagined industrial policy. The department, therefore, has a responsibility to give flesh to this ambition and outline the contribution of the sector to boosting manufacturing productivity, future-fitting the economy. The department must take seriously its role as the backbone of the economy and its responsibility in driving the development of a modern economy driven by, amongst others, development of local technologies and capabilities, including the strategic imperative of sovereign satellite capability. We welcome the progress being made by our mobile network operators in engaging with a number of low Earth orbit satellite providers who provide services which are similar, if not better at times, than the touted Starlink. The ANC welcomes reports that the operators that are compliant with South Africa's legislative and regulatory conditions are already active in the South African market. This morning, the CEO of Centec reported at the Africa Tech Conference that Centec now has LEO services as part of their connectivity solutions. We said it before and we repeat it now. We do not need to change our laws to accommodate any single company when their equivalent services who are by service providers prepared to respect our laws. South Africa stands at a pivotal moment in its digital transformation journey. The promise of a connected society where every citizen, regardless of geography or income, can access opportunities enabled by technology remains within reach. Yet, as the recent oversight visit by the committee to Limpopo has revealed, this promise is being undermined by a fundamental challenge: fragmented policy implementation and inadequate coordination across the three spheres of government. Now, this is not merely a bureaucratic concern. It has real consequences for communities. Every duplicated tranche dug, every unaligned network deployed, and every delayed connection represents a school still offline, a clinic still disconnected, and an entrepreneur excluded from the digital economy. The lesson is unequivocal. South Africa cannot afford a fragmented approach to digital development. What is required is a unified vision operationalized through deliberate coordination and shared accountability across provincial and national government. A synergized and unified ICT master plan is therefore no longer optional, it is imperative. House Chair, the broadband infraco occupies a strategic position in South Africa's connectivity architecture. It maintains 713 government facilities under phase 1 of the SA Connect project and projects an increase of 200 kilometers of fiber annually over the medium term. However, the entity continues to project deficits, with revenue rising to 373.9 million by 2028-29 against expenditure of 1 billion. That gap cannot be closed by wishful thinking. The proposed merger of BBI, Centec, and CETA into the State Digital Infrastructure Company must be brought before this House with a clear business case. It is a year and a half since the courts halted the analog switch-off. Despite the high cost of dual elimination, there still seems to be no solution on the horizon. This delay cost the fiscus, it cost the broadcasting industry, and the delays on the spectrum dividend that would underpin lower data prices and faster mobile broadband for our people. South Africa's digital future depends on our ability to function as one government, not as three disconnected spheres. The Constitution envisages cooperative governance, not parallel governance. In the context of ICT development, this principle must translate into integrated planning, shared infrastructure, and collective execution. The ANC supports this budget, but our support is conditional on accelerated rollout, transparent spectrum licensing, protected mandates, and an end to regulatory paralysis that the opposition mistakes for governance. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Shongwe. Is the Honourable Shongwe on the platform?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I'm standing in for Honourable Shongwe.
Please proceed, Honourable Member.
Chairperson, partnership is privatization. Today, we are called upon not only to assess a budget, but to interrogate whether public resources are being translated into real outcomes for our people. First and second quarter performance of the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies presents a deeply concerning picture. one that reflects a systematic weakness in planning, execution, and accountability. Limpopo's province digital transformation projects led by the department have collapsed and failed. Our people were promised digital TV, broadband fiber, ICT skills, schools, and seamless government and people connectivity. So far, dololo. We therefore call for a parliamentary inquiry into the billions looted in the digital transformation projects in Limpopo. Honorable Chair, at the outset, this department exposes a fundamental vulnerability in how strategic programs are financed and sustained. But what is more troubling is not merely the size of the budget. It is what the department is doing with it. By the end of Q1, the department had already spent 1.1 billion or 42% of its budget. And by Q2, expenditures has risen already to over 60%. Yet performance outcomes remains dismal. Only 54% targets achieved in Q1 and 58% in Q2. Honorable members, this is not just an underperformance. It is a failure of value for money. The committee itself has observed a clear misalignment between expenditure and results. In simple terms, the state is spending more but delivering less. We must ask, what explains this persistent gap between inputs and outcomes? First, poor planning and unrealistic target setting continue to undermine delivery. Programs repeatedly failed to meet their commitments, yet there is little evidence of meaningful course of correction. This suggests that the department's annual performance plan is not a credible instrument of accountability, but rather a compliance exercise detached from operational reality. Secondly, there are glaring weaknesses in project execution, none more evident than the ongoing failure of the SA Connect program. Despite being central to bridging the digital divide, SA Connect is plagued by underspending, delayed payments, and slow rollout. These failures are not abstract. They directly affect rural schools, clinics, and communities that remain excluded from digital opportunities. Thirdly, the department's internal capacity constraints are deeply concerning. Millions of rands remains unspent due to unfilled vacancies, even in critical positions. At the same time, the organizational structure is not aligned with the budget, undermining both financial control and performance monitoring. This raises fundamental questions. How can a department tasked with driving digital transformation fail to get its own house in order? It is time the president resigns. He is a constitutional delinquent and is running this country every day and ruining it as he stays in the presidency. Honorable members, the GNU failures challenges do not end at the department. They extend across its portfolio of entities. We see a pattern of instability and financial distress. One, SAPO remains fragile and dependent on incomplete funding support. Two, broadband infraco is in severe financial distress with declining revenue and governance weaknesses. Three, USASA holds a significant unspent funds while rural connectivity gaps persist. Four, CETA and SABC and Centec struggles with debt collection, governance issues, and declining service performance. This is not an isolated problem. It is a systematic failure of oversight. Billions are transferred to entities, 1.8 billion in this financial year alone. Yet there is a limited evidence that these funds are delivering anything in relation to its performances. There is insufficient evidence of jobs creation, digital inclusion, or socioeconomic development arising from its programs. This goes to the heart of its mandate. We must be clear. Digital transformation is not a luxury. It is a necessity for economic growth, job creation, and social inclusion. But transformation cannot occur through fragmented planning, weak execution, and ineffective oversight. Therefore, this House must insist on recalibration of priorities. The department must urgently, one, strengthen the link between spending and measurable outcomes. accelerate SA Connect with clear accountability and timelines, fill critical vacancies and stabilize leadership, and improve planning and cost control, particularly for predictable commitments, and enforce stronger oversight and consequence management across all entities. Chairperson, the GNU has failed. This is not merely about fixing a department, it is about restoring public trust. Every rand spent must translate into tangible benefits for South Africans, affordable connectivity, digital skills, and an inclusive economic participation. Until that happens, we cannot in any good conscience endorse a budget that continues to spend without delivering. Until these shortcomings are addressed, we cannot fully support this budget. Vote MK, and we seriously say vote MK. Honorable Chair, MK reject this budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Singh.
Honorable House Chairperson, the DA Minister inherited a department weighed down by instability, fragmentation, governance failures, delayed reforms, aging infrastructure, and a widening digital divide. And yet, despite severe fiscal constraints, there are encouraging signs as the department moves from fragmentation towards measurable implementation and accountability. This portfolio should not merely be viewed as a technology department, but as one of the strongest potential drivers of economic growth and job creation in government if properly aligned and implemented. How reliable broadband, digital infrastructure, digital skills, and affordable connectivity are essential to investments, jobs, business growth, and economic inclusion. However, policy alone will not bridge the digital divide. Delivery will. And this is where the department's entities become critical. Broadband Infraco occupies a strategically important position in South Africa's digital future, particularly regarding broadband expansion, SA Connect, and rural connectivity. The APP reflects ambitions to expand network reach, maintain SA Connect sites, and grow fiber infrastructure. However, concerns remain around BBI's commercial sustainability, duplication with other state-owned infrastructure entities, and delays regarding the ECS license. It is therefore encouraging that for the first time in many years, there appears to be tangible movement on the rationalization of BBI and Centec. The appointment of a service provider is welcome, and the sooner the model is finalized, the sooner legislative implementation can begin to address fragmented state digital infrastructure. South Africa cannot build a digital economy without digital skills. The National Electronic Media Institute of South Africa therefore has an increasingly important role to play. Its APP correctly identifies severe shortages in digital and emerging technology skills, including cybersecurity, software development, AI-related skills, and digital media capabilities. The expansion of digital literacy, entrepreneurship, and emerging technology programs is welcome. But the committee was correct in highlighting that training numbers alone are not enough. We must also measure how many trainees find employment, start businesses, and are absorbed into the digital economy, because South Africa does not need certificates without opportunity. It needs skills linked to economic participation, entrepreneurship, and jobs. As government increasingly moves online, cybersecurity, digital identity, and online trust become matters of national importance. This is why the work of the ZA Domain Name Authority matters far more than many people realize. .ZNA is responsible for safeguarding South Africa's digital namespace and strengthening trust in the .ZA domain environment. There has been positive progress around DNS security and cyber threat mitigation, but concerns remain around the low registrar compliance targets and the limited scale of digital inclusion initiatives. If South Africa is serious about growing township economies and SMMEs, then trusted local digital presence, cybersecurity awareness, and domain ownership must form part of broader economic inclusion strategies. The APPs of the Universal Service and Access Agency of South Africa and the Universal Service and Access Fund reflect an important institutional shift. After years of weak delivery models and fragmented implementation, the move toward a more transparent and outcomes-based funding model is welcome. Progress towards transitioning USA into a digital development fund should also be welcomed, particularly as the proposal is expected to serve before Cabinet soon. Concerns nevertheless remain high around personnel costs, weak coordination, and limited visibility of developmental impact in rural communities. South Africans do not experience digital inclusion through plans and presentations. They experience it when schools are connected, clinics function online, entrepreneurs can trade digitally, and communities can access affordable broadband. Further, the mandate of the Film and Publication Board has become significantly more complex in the digital age. The FPB now confronts online harms, streaming platforms, social media, digital exploitation, and child sexual abuse material in an increasingly borderless online environment. Its digital transformation and AI monitoring initiatives are encouraging, but the growing mandate has not been matched by sufficient operational capacity and technological expansion. House Chairperson, there is still a very long way to go. The work is not complete, far from it. But for the first time in many years, there is evidence that this department and several of its entities are beginning to move in the right direction. The task is now to ensure that policy intent becomes visible impact in the lives of ordinary South Africans. I thank you, Chair.
The Speaker, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. The EFF rises to deliberate on Budget Vote 30, focusing on communications and digital technologies for 2026-27 financial year. Our conclusion is simple. The SABC is nearing collapse, and this budget does not do nearly enough to save it. Let me be clear. The EFF will not be sidetracked by complicated language, performance metrics that evaluate tasks rather than outcomes, or endless cycles of reports and initiatives that fail to benefit the poor. We speak for the millions of South Africans who cannot afford DSTV, lack reliable streaming options, and rely on the SABC for news, education, entertainment, and the sense of national identity. The SABC is not a luxury. It is a public asset and a constitutional necessity, yet it is being systematically depleted. We have consistently expressed serious concerns over the SABC's unfunded public mandate, which exceeds 7 billion rand over the medium term. This significant gap threatens the broadcaster's ability to fulfill its responsibilities to the people of South Africa. We have also raised concerns about the aging infrastructure of the SABC, which jeopardizes its digital transformation and the universal broadcasting obligations. Poor signal distribution risks leaving parts of the country without proper coverage during the 2026 local government elections. We have further warned that the long overdue SABC funding model and the SABC bill remain unresolved because Parliament and the Minister have failed to act with urgency. The EFF says enough is enough. We demand an urgent, comprehensive and unconditional rescue plan for the SABC, including a 7 billion rand injection over the next 3 years to address its unfunded mandate. We need a budget that guarantees the SABC's financial sustainability without forcing it to operate like a commercial broadcaster. The SABC must be funded by taxpayers through the state, not through unrealistic dependence on unpaid television licenses and declining advertising revenue. Regarding the relationship between the SABC and Centec, the unresolved debt between the two entities threatens both institutions. Both are critical to broadcasting and communications, yet they remain trapped in a debt cycle that neither can escape independently. The SABC cannot pay because of funding shortages, and Centec cannot simply write off the debt because it depends on that income for its own sustainability. The minister who oversees both entities cannot treat this as though it is merely a private commercial dispute. The EFF demands a binding resolution plan supported by government guarantees and strict timelines. It is unacceptable for the state to allow its own entities to undermine one another. ICASA is also critically underfunded, limiting its ability to regulate effectively in a rapidly evolving digital environment. Treasury and the department must establish a sustainable funding model for ICASA so that it can function independently without constantly seeking annual approvals for basic operational capacity. As for the South African Post Office and the Post Bank, while they are emerging from business rescue, they still lack stable leadership and properly constituted boards. Revenue continues to decline while several branches continue to face security challenges. Post Bank has successfully distributed social grants without interruption for 2 years, yet it still lacks a permanent head office because of procurement delays, while SASA owes Post Bank more than 100 million rand. The EFF therefore demands that the minister urgently appoints a board and permanent executives for the post office, secure the promised 2 billion rand capital injection for Post Bank, clear SASA debt, and complete the operational separation of Post Bank from the post office. Post Bank must also receive a full banking license so that it can provide comprehensive financial services to unbanked and underbanked communities neglected by commercial banks. In conclusion, the EFF will not stand idly while the SABC faces collapse. We know the consequences of weakened public broadcasting, the rise of misinformation, dependence on foreign platforms with no accountability, and a democracy polluted by falsehood. Though the SABC has its flaws, abandoning it is not a solution. What is required is stronger democracy, greater transparency, proper public funding, and accountability. Before this budget vote was passed, the minister should have provided written assurances on at least 2 things. First, an additional 7 billion rand over the next 3 years for the SABC's unfunded mandate, and a binding resolution plan for the SABC Centec debt crisis. The SABC is more than numbers on a balance sheet. It is the voice of our nation and will not remain silent while the voice is muted. The EFF does not support this budget. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Ngobesi.
Honourable House Chair, may I greet you? Let me also greet the Honourable Minister and the Deputy Minister and the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. Honourable members, the IFP acknowledges the report on Budget Vote 30 and supports the efforts to strengthen the South African digital transformation agenda. We recognize the important role that the communication and digital technologies play in advancing economic growth, improving service delivery, and expanding opportunities for all South Africans. We welcome the continued commitments towards broadband expansion, digital skills development, and improving connectivity for rural and underserved communities. Access to reliable and affordable digital infrastructure is no longer a luxury, but a development necessity to educate, innovate entrepreneurship, and economic participation. We further note that the department's medium-term development plan focuses on expanding broadband access to household, schools, health facilities, and rural communities, while positioning digital technologies as drivers of economic growth and improved public service delivery. We also recognize the importance of cybersecurity innovation and digital inclusion in ensuring that South Africa remain competitive with an increasingly technology-driven global economy. Greater investment in digital skills and technological capacity building will be essential in preparing young people and emerging entrepreneurs to participate meaningfully in the digital economy. However, the success of these commitments will depend on effective implementation, ethical governance, and proper oversight of public resources. Public entities within the sector must also be held accountable for meeting implementation targets and delivering service within the reasonable timeframes. We remain concerned about persistent governance weaknesses, infrastructure delays, underspending, operational inefficient and uneven implementation across several sector entities. Honorable Chair, the IFP further believes that the greater attention must be paid to ensure that infrastructure investment translates into practical, sustainable, and service delivery outcomes of communities. The SAPC continues to play an important role in ensuring access to public information and local content, particularly for vulnerable communities. At the same time, institutions such as SITA, SAPO, and USASA continue to face operational and financial pressures that require stronger oversight, improved management, and consequence-driven accountability. For the IFP, the committee's recommendation relating to the stronger oversight, improved financial management, enhanced accountability, and better coordination across programs and entities are both necessary and timely. These are not merely administrative matters, but issues that directly affect public trust, service delivery, and the responsible use of public resources. We believe that public resources allocated toward digital and transformation must produce measurable outcomes of communities, particularly young people, small businesses, schools, and rural households that remain excluded from the digital economy. Honorable Chairperson, South Africa cannot afford delays in building an inclusive and a competitive digital future. The IFP therefore support practical accountability and inclusive digital governance that advances service delivery, strengthen public institutions, and expand equitable access to communication technology for all South Africans. The IFP supports this budget, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Hendricks.
Honorable Speaker, thanks. Honorable members, Minister, I rise today on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance to debate Vote 30, Communication and Digital Technology, a vote that speaks directly to the modernization of our economy and the empowerment of our people. In the digital age, connectivity is not a privilege, it is a necessity. Our people in Limpopo and in the Eastern Cape must form part of this digitalization. We must accelerate digital inclusion of millions of South Africans, particularly in rural areas and townships, remain excluded from affordable internet access. Honorable Chair, we might just go back to, I think it was on the 28th of April when we were in Limpopo. Out of 100% of the houses, since 2024, about 7% of the households are connected to broadband. That can't be right, Chair. We went with SA Connect to some village in, I think it was in Madimulo, if I stand corrected, where we went and celebrate. We did oversight at some of these sites where people were connected. But half of the street were crying to us, saying, "You're from Parliament, but we don't have connectivity." So connectivity must reach every household and school and clinic. This is not a favor, this is a must, Chair, because without access, there can be no participation in digital economy. Even modernization won't take place without us connecting our people. We must invest in digital skills. At the University of Limpopo, I have to thank the Minister for those labs which will take our people further in upskilling them And if we can roll it out to places like the Eastern Cape and many others, that will come in handy. Technology is only as powerful as the people who use it. Vote 30 must prioritize training for youth, which already in the University of Limpopo is happening, and I have thanked the Minister for that intervention. What an intervention with our private sector. If I can remember, my memory serves me correct, it was Samsung, who's also a sponsor of that lab. They are equipped to thrive in the digital economy and contribute to inclusive growth. Honorable members, communication and digital technology are the backbone of modern governance, commerce, and education. Without communication and digital technology, we can't see this happening. So for this to happen, honorable members, we need to invest and do proper oversight. We have seen in Limpopo, there's a lot of infrastructure that lies dormant. People are overfunded. There was one entity that wanted us to clap hands for a merely 35 households that are connected. We can't, not in 2026. Honorable members, communication and digital technology, again, is the backbone. We can't drop the ball. Let us commit to building a South Africa where every citizen is connected, protected, and prepared for a digital future. Millions of our people are still not connected. In Limpopo, it was sad for me listening to the Royal House. They were not complaining, but as a government, what we are giving and offering them can't be normal. It can't be right, Chair. A connected South Africa is an empowered South Africa. Vote 30 must deliver digital justice for all. Chair, I go to the post bank. I go to post office. We need proper management. We listen to the presentation by the SABC. The SABC can be a prosperous business if there is political will. As the Patriotic Alliance, we support this. Vote 30, and I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Wessels.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. The Department of Communication and Digital Technologies holds the key to unlocking economic potential of the digital age and the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. We must, however, acknowledge the flickering lights of progress while also confronting the long shadows of institutional decay, the suffocating grip of overregulation, and the failed entities of this department. The South African Post Office remains a national tragedy. More than 360 branches of the Post Office have been closed since 2024, and the remaining are mostly dysfunctional and offline most of the time. It has become a black hole for taxpayers' funds, and as the online shopping space is expanding daily, private courier services are booming whilst the state-owned post office fails to utilize its infrastructure to profit from this booming sector. Whilst the post office is emerging from business rescue and it seems to be moving in a better direction, much more is needed and a total rehaul of the post office is needed. Similarly, SETA continues to be the graveyard of government efficiency, plagued by procurement bottlenecks and frequent system outages. Crucial service delivery departments are often left disconnected due to SETA's failures. SETA is the barrier to the modernization of our government departments. Many departments are seeking to divorce SETA and procure their own IT services rather. But even if our entities were functional, we face the crisis of overregulation, Chairperson. South Africa's digital economy is being strangled by a nanny-state regulatory framework that moves at a snail's pace while technology moves at the speed of light. When data, fintech, and digital infrastructure are over-regulated, it is not protecting the public. It is preventing modernization and economic growth. Every day a digital license is delayed by red tape is a day a South African remains unemployed. Over-regulation is not a safety net. It is a wall that keeps our youth out of the global digital economy. Minister, we need a department that does more than just transfer billions to failing entities. We need a department that gets out of the way of South African innovators. It is time to move past dysfunction and bureaucracy and to build a digital ecosystem that actually works. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Kobe.
Thank you very much, House Chair. House Chair, the budget vote on communications and digital technology once again reflects and highlights both opportunities and the deep structural challenges facing the sector. This vote reflects a recurring pattern that while the department and its entities demonstrate pockets of progress, service delivery remains inconsistent, infrastructure faces rollout persistent delays, and governance weaknesses continue to undermine its impact. House Chairperson, the digital technology is a prerequisite for a capable state, for economic competitiveness, and for public service modernization. But as ActionSA, we are not convinced that the leadership of this department should be entrusted with managing a budget of this critical function, let alone tasked with shaping South Africa's digital future. This is no longer the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. Rather, it should have an apt name change to the Department of Hallucinated Technology, led by the Minister of AI himself. And one has to ask, in what world does the government hand the responsibility of drafting AI policy to the AI policy that it is supposedly trying to regulate? Only in South Africa could a minister table a policy filled with fabricated AI-generated references and still keep his job. In any serious democracy, that minister would have been long fired before the ink dried on their press statement. Imagine the CEO of a listed company presenting shareholders with invented citations, fake sources, and fabricated research. They would not even survive a week. Yet once again, our president did this on this matter. But surely, Honourable House Chair, basic integrity still matters. Surely, any minister whose signature appears on a document riddled with AI hallucinations would have long resigned. But this is not the case, Honourable House Chair. And where, Honourable House Chair, is the leadership of the DA in all of this? Is this really the best that they can offer to South Africa? This is not some harmless administrative error, House Chair. Rather, what has happened is a profound breach of trust between the executive and the people of South Africa. Citizens expect policy documents to be credible, verified, and professionally prepared, not carelessly stitched together by a chatbot and dumped on a government letterhead. If this department cannot even verify its own references, how can South Africans trust it with AI governance, cybersecurity, digital infrastructure, or the future of technological innovation? As ActionSA, we cannot support the budget of a department that cannot competently perform its own basic functions. And the dysfunction is not even limited to the minister alone. Even this report that is tabled before the House today, if honourable members were honest about it, it reflects the chaos that is inside this department. Tables are illegible, formatting is incoherent, critical information is scattered so poorly that effective oversight becomes almost impossible. Quite frankly, Honourable House Chair, it appears the department ceased functioning the moment its premium subscription to ChatGPT expired. And it is for these reasons that ActionSA cannot support this budget. I thank you, Honourable House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies.
Honourable Chair, honourable members, Minister, honourable members, Director General, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I wanted to say this point before I start my speech. ANC is run by a leader who has subjected himself to South African laws during his entire life. not by more than 20-year justice and court trial fugitive. As we table budget vote 30, we're not just speaking about technology, we're speaking about how we can leverage technology innovation and digital transformation as a strategic driver for future socio-economic growth, because digital transformation is no longer a luxury, but an urgent intervention we can make to improve the lives of South Africans. As we table this budget, the question is no longer whether we will be part of the digital world. The question is whether all South Africans will be included in it. As we expand access, we must also confront a growing reality. A connected society is also a vulnerable society. We must be conscious of protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of sensitive information systems and digital assets. This is important for a small open economy like ours, as vulnerabilities in cybersecurity threaten critical infrastructure, financial stability, and the capacity of the state. Other South Africans also face threats online. It is young learner exposed to cyberbullying on a mobile phone. It is the elderly person scammed of their pension because they clicked the wrong link. It is the small business losing income because of online fraud. These are not abstract risks, they are lived experiences. Through our work across government, we're strengthening cybersecurity system across departments with 99.8 network availability and improved resilience. We're building capacity to protect critical infrastructure and public data, and we're ensuring that digital transformation does not come at the cost of citizen safety, because digital inclusion without protection is not empowerment, it is exposure. Honorable Chairperson, this is where the work of the Film and Public Board becomes essential, because cybersecurity is not only about system, but also about people. It is about what South Africans encounter when they go online. Through FPP, the thousands of citizens are being engaged through awareness programs on cyberbullying, harmful content, deepfakes, and online exploitation. Over 4,300 participants have already been reached through target outreach initiatives. Ongoing research is helping us understand emerging threats in real time. What does this mean in practice? It means a parent is better equipped to guide their child online. It means a young person understands the risk before they are exposed to harm. It means communities become more aware, more vigilant, and more resilient, because a connected society must also be safe, informed, and protected society. Chairperson, protection alone is not enough. If we're serious about inclusion, then we must invest in digital skills at scale, because access without skill is frustration. This is why the work of NEMISA is also so critical. This is an institution whose primary responsibility is to enhance South Africa's digital skills capacity through training in creative media, ICT, and 4IR technologies. It's an institution that empowers youth and previously disadvantaged communities to improve employability and support digital entrepreneurship. In this regard, we're seeing real progress. Over 40,000 South Africans trained in digital literacy, nearly 12,000 SMMEs supported, more than 3,000 individuals trained in emerging technologies. Behind these numbers are real stories. It is a young person who learns basic coding and begins to see new possibilities. It is a small business owner who moves from informal trading to online platform. It is an unemployed graduate who gains a skill that opens a door. And yet everywhere we go, this message is the same: we need more. The demand for digital skill is growing faster than our current capacity, and that is both a challenge and an opportunity. Honorable Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, participation in the digital economy is not automatic. It requires access to platform, tools, and identity. It is why institutions like ZA Domain Name Authority are fundamental for the growth of the sector. The domain name system has both a developmental and economic significance. The significance lies in enabling accessibility, scalability, and security, which are critical for digital commerce and technological growth. Through the work of ZDNA, Name Authority, over 100 register and seller training programs have been conducted. Targeted efforts are empowering youth, women, SMMEs, and persons with disabilities. What this means? It means a young entrepreneur can register a domain and take their business online. It means a small enterprise can move from operating locally to being visible globally. This is how we begin to democratize the digital economy, not just for large players, but for ordinary South Africans. Honorable members, even as we digitize, you must remember that for many South Africans, access still depends on physical points of service. This is why the role of South African Post Office remains important. We're seeing encouraging signs of 86% reduction in net losses down to 71 million, growth in key services and improved governance. The appointment of board executive is at an advanced stage. But more importantly, we are seeing the beginnings of the stability with that, the potential to restore trust, because inclusion means meeting people where they are. Honorable Chair, inclusion must also be financial. Through Post Bank, we have achieved over 150 million in profit before tax, expanded to more than 230 sites nationwide, created more than 600 youth jobs, and are reaching additional 650,000 beneficiaries through ongoing rollout. Beyond the numbers, this is the pensioner receiving their grant safely. This is the young person opening their first account. This is the worker transacting without traveling long distance or paying his fees. This is dignity in practice. Better Africa, Better World, the A2USG campaign. Chairperson, our work does not stop at our borders. Through our participation in the African Telecommunications Union, we are contributing to shaping Africa's digital future, strengthening cooperation on connectivity, innovation, and regulation, and ensuring that South Africa plays a leading role on the continent. The digital economy is not only national, but also continental. Chairperson, it is also encouraging that South Africa continues to position itself strongly with continental digital leadership spaces. We're proud that South Africa has presented Ms. Cynthia Lesufi as its candidate for the position of Secretary General of the African Telecommunications Union for 2027-2030 term. Ms. Lesufi brings extensive experience in ICT and digital policy environment with strong understanding of the continent's evolving telecommunication landscape and the importance of digital inclusion for developing economies. Importantly, her candidates also represent a significant moment for gender representation in the sector as one of the first women to be positioned for this role with ATU. Her leadership, institutional knowledge, and understanding of Africa's developmental priorities position her as a strong candidate to help drive more connected, inclusive, and digital capable continent. Honorable members, as I conclude, when we speak about cyber security skills, institutions, and inclusion, we're speaking about one thing: people, the learner navigating internet for the first time, the entrepreneur trying to grow a business, the family trying to access service, the citizen trying to stay safe online. So the question we must ask ourselves is simple. Are we making it easier for them to participate or harder? Because if we are not making it easier, then we must do more. Because somewhere in this country, this afternoon, someone is trying to connect to opportunity. Our responsibility is to make sure that connection is not a privilege, but a reality. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Matafa.
Greetings, House Chair, Minister, DM members. A connected nation is a powerful and formidable nation. That is the expectation and the demand. However, we are gathered here today on Budget Vote 30, discussing the digital divide and how best to entrench transformation in the communication sector. There is substantial work to be done, and the ANC, as always, is happy to lead the way forward. The African National Congress positions itself today as it has since 1994 as the underwriter of financial sustainable, editorial independent South African Broadcasting Corporation that serves our constitutional mandate and social cohesion and nation building. Broadcasting cannot be interpreted in linear terms, but must be appreciated in the multifaceted dimension it presents. It is about representation, inclusion, and progress made not only by the nation, but also by the values we wish to see in the sector. The SABC's projected expenditure rise from 6.7 billion in 25-26 to 7.9 billion in 28-29, an average annual growth of 5.6%. The corporation reports a 20% vacancy rate, a deficit narrowing from 162.7 million toward a near balanced position by 28-29, and a target of 1.5 million SABC Plus users by the end of the MTEF. Honorable Chair, these are commitments, not yet achievements. The ANC welcomes the trajectory towards fiscal independence, but we are skeptical of any plan that depends on commercial revenue. While the broadcaster carries a legislated public mandate to broadcast on all official languages, to cover 7 national days, and to deliver to rural communities where commercial advertising will never be profitable, the revised SABC bill, due before this House, must resolve the funding model question once and for all. The current half measure punishes the corporation and confuses the public. The SABC Plus streaming platform targets 1 million users by the end of 26-27 FY and 1.5 million by 28-29 FY. We support this repositioning for the over-the-top era, but we caution that digital transformation cannot come at the cost of the free-to-air mandate. The most marginalized South African in the rural areas must remain the SABC's first audience. Digital skills have been identified as a direct gateway to the digital economy, particularly for young people who seek economic mobility in the digital sector. Digital skills have become a crucial point of discussion. When it comes to NEMISA, digital literacy training drops from 60,000 learners in 25-26 to 50,000 in 26-27. That is a substantial reduction at exactly the moment when we need to be scaling up. The fourth industrial revolution does not pause because the Treasury has tightened its belt. The ANC demands that NEMISA's underfunded mandate be raised before the next MTF review, and we will support the entity's efforts to raise additional funding and pursue partnerships in the interim. A non-negotiable position for the ANC is that the SABC's mandate is to reflect South Africa's linguistic and cultural diversity. We expect meaningful, measurable support for indigenous language broadcasting in cultural affairs. As the ANC, we expect the SABC to spell out concrete partnerships with the community broadcasting sector, which holds the airwaves in places the SAB signal reaches, but its audience do not always feel represented. The ANC supports this budget vote on the express understanding that the SABC bill, the funding model reform, and the data affordability remedies will be delivered in the financial year and not the next. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. There is a number of parties that have not indicated that they're taking up slots. I will call upon them anyway. The ACDP, the UDM, Rice, the Honourable Maimane.
Thank you and good afternoon, House Chairperson, and good afternoon to the Minister and the team. 300,000 South Africans joined the ranks of the unemployed today. They represent the growing levels of unemployment. They ask us this fundamental question: what is our economy, and are we thinking about the economy of the future? And therefore, honorable members, this debate this afternoon can't just be ignorant of the fact that we need to be dealing with an SABC of the future, a post office of the future, and an AI policy of the future. I want to begin with the most fundamental. When we traveled to India recently, the Indian government tabled its own budget. It called it AI, our future policy. When the South African government eventually tabled the AI policy, which much of this debate has focused on how poorly written it was, it really jeopardized our economic prospects. It failed to answer the question, are we going to replicate digital apartheid by allowing some who are included and others to be excluded? I want to call upon Minister Malaki to say that was economic sabotage. People need to be fired. People need to be held accountable. Because if we're going to transition South Africa's future, AI isn't just about the policy. It's about data centers, it's about cloud computing, it's about digital research, it's about entrepreneurship, and it's about ensuring that the 300,000 who join the unemployed today become part of high-tech jobs. It's about how we empower our schools to make sure they're teaching our young people on education. It's about our disruptive ability. It's about behavioral economics. It's about ensuring that those who work in the future recognize that they are working in a digital universe. The bedrock of all of this needs to be, as the special appropriation on Centec has been put forward, that a finalization on this issue must be put so that we can ensure that broadband is adequately managed, that we ensure the relationship between that and the SAPC empowers the SAPC of the future, that ultimately post-office stops becoming a limp on the government, but an economic enabler, a logistics hub, a place upon which all citizens, regardless of where they are, can be beneficiaries of ports where they can connect digitally, but where they can ultimately work out their logistics. House Chairperson, this budget vote needs to go broader. And I would urge, with the support we give it now, that we increase it, for it is the economic enabler. It is the way we end digital apartheid, and it is the way we ensure all South Africans can participate. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. ATM, Al-Jama, NCC, PAC, UAT, good. The Honourable Bodlani from the DA.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister, fellow South Africans. House Chairperson, as we debate the 2026 budget vote for the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, the Democratic Alliance is inspired by the commitment to a digitized future for all South Africans. The DA's vision for the DCDT is articulated in our 2024 policy on information and communication technology. Now, in government, our vision of connecting South Africa for development and growth is within reach. Indeed, we will achieve this goal under the leadership of Minister Solly Malatsi. The DA's position is clear that an open opportunity society is one in which citizens have affordable access and an understanding of the connected, digitalized world that we live in. The DA's goals for the department strongly aligns with those of the GNU. By advancing digital connectivity in the fourth industrial revolution, the department is well positioned to drive inclusive economic growth and job creation, reduce poverty and the high cost of living, as well as build a capable, ethical, and developmental state. Importantly, we are painfully aware that 2 years at the helm of DCDT is not enough to undo the systematic mismanagement of the department and its entities. Since the last budget vote, there has been notable progress. The Electronic Communications Amendment Bill has been tabled before Parliament. For years, the DA has maintained that the Principal Act is outdated and has become an obstacle to the sector's evolution. Our promise to South Africa is that as soon as the bill arrives before the committee, the DA will ensure that it is speedily processed. This bill is pivotal to the increasing competition in the sector by reducing barriers to entry. In addition, efforts to improve governance, accountability, and performance across DCDT entities are noted. We believe that with continued strategic leadership and financial discipline, the DCDT will achieve its mandate and it will be fit for purpose. On the post office, we remain concerned about the fragile financial state of SAPO and its ability to remain sustainable after the business rescue. We do, however, welcome the commitment to exit business rescue. This process has been in place for far too long, with rescue practitioners showing little commitment to developing a solid, sustainable strategy for SAPO. We welcome the integration of the management team into the day-to-day running of SAPO. This will ensure a smooth transition from the rescue process. We urge Minister Malatsi to provide us with tangible timelines for this process so we can hold them accountable. On the SABC, we applaud the executive and the board of the SABC for making progress in creating stability at the entity. To support their efforts, we reiterate that the finalization of the SABC bill remains urgent. We can confirm that the minister has taken Parliament into his confidence by presenting the proposed funding model of the SABC to the Portfolio Committee. We are confident that this bill will help restore stability at SABC on SABC's operations. The SABC is an important institution, especially as we head to the local government elections. We have sounded the alarm about the lack of commitment on funding the SABC's election operations. We call on all stakeholder departments to provide clarity on this as soon as possible. SITA House Chairperson is turning a corner. We welcome the reforms and leadership stability at the entity. We also welcome the appointment of Ndatemillo as Managing Director, together with the appointment of Professor Stella Vuma and the new board. This represents a new era for SITA, which has over the recent months shown signs of agility and vigor to claim its market share in government IT services. House Chairperson, Centec carries an important mandate as our broadcasting signal distributor. While we note that the SABC has made progress, the debt dispute with Centec is a serious concern. Centec continues to carry the cost and burden of the analog switch-off delays due to the matter still being in court. We call on the minister to continue with the stakeholder engagements and to find a solution to this during this financial year. The DA continues to call for the rationalization of DCDT entities. We welcome the vehicle that will be the State Digital Infrastructure Company in achieving this. The SDIC will create a consolidated national network to accelerate broadband access and fast-track digital inclusion. As the adage goes, Rome was not built in a day. However, we are up to the task. Project South Africa is far too important for DCDT to fail. The DA is committed to helping to mend previous governance failures and protecting South Africans by fighting corruption from inside. Chair, with ActionSA having been in Parliament for 2 years, one would have thought that they will use Parliament as a place for contestation of ideas and not a space to limit themselves to what is trending on Twitter or what was trending 2 weeks ago. In conclusion, House Chairperson, the DCDT is in a far better position under the DA than before. The road to progress is never in a straight line, but we are moving forward. Lessons are being learned, and we will not shy away from that. We are fixing foundations and preparing for a future. The DA is more motivated than ever that DCDT is on the way, in the right way. We thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Subrathi.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, Honourable Members and fellow South Africans, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Honourable House Chairperson, the African National Congress resolved that South Africa requires a state bank that serves the working class, that serves the unemployed, that serves the rural poor and the social grant beneficiary. And Postbank is that vehicle. Allow me on that note, Honourable House Chair, to commend Postbank on its successful registration in March of this year as a licensed financial services provider with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. It is a meaningful step with a deposit-taking institution towards a fully fledged state bank, and it demonstrates that Postbank can meet the FSCA's stringent standards. This license also crushes the hopes of many perhaps in this House who do not want to see, Honourable Chairperson, a successful state bank. Honourable Chairperson, allow me, Honourable Chairperson, the South African Post Office, Honourable Chairperson, the South African Post Office receives 595.5 million in the 2026-2027 year to honour its universal services access across 553 points of presence. Honourable Chairperson, that is 553 points down from 1,069 point of presence in the 2022-2023 financial year. Almost half the network has closed in 3 years. We cannot pretend that this is recovery. This is contraction. SAPO must exit business rescue. It must exit not as a smaller, weaker version of itself, but as the rural infrastructure backbone of Postbank. And while we debate the macro, let us not lose sight, Honorable Chairperson, of the micro. Allow me then to acknowledge Mrs. Duyoyo and her wonderful team at the Sibaya Post Office in Limpopo. Public servants, Honorable Chairperson, who despite every funding shortfall, every operational headwind, and every closure rumor, continue to open those doors every morning and serve their community. They embody the values and the spirit of what the post office was, is, and must remain. They are the human face, Honorable Chairperson, of the case that we are making today. They are why we do not abandon the post office. Honorable House Chair, allow me now to address the matters that have been raised in this House directly, because the temperature in this House requires honesty. The Democratic Alliance Minister has shown no sign and no appetite to ensure that entities serving marginalized communities are financially capacitated. The minister tabled an AI policy that was so widely ridiculed, so manifestly written with the assistance of the very technology it sought to govern, that it had to be withdrawn. An AI policy written by AI. This is what this department has been subjected to. And how can we trust a minister that is applying himself in policy where he continues to prove that all he does is outsource his critical thinking and his intellectual rigor? Then, Chairperson, we had the spectacle of the Starlink policy directives, in which the minister sought to use a policy directive of all instruments to amend the spirit of the Electronic Communications Act and create a backdoor to foreign tech giants to bypass the empowerment objective and requirements that local black-owned operators must meet. ICASA, to its credit, did its constitutional duty. The minister, to his discredit, briefed media before he briefed the portfolio committee. Then, Honorable Chairperson, there is the issue of CETA. There is the issue of the CETA opt-out regulation, gazetted in May 2025, which permits government departments to procure IT services outside CETA on the basis of a business case. Whatever the legitimate frustrations with CETA's service delivery, this is the slow privatization of state ICT capacity by devolving by regulation what CETA Act expressly prescribes and reopening the door to the very procurement free for all that hollowed our state in the first place. Honorable Chairperson, then on the 12th of December 2025, the minister gazetted a directive removing parcels under the 1 kg SAPO's reserved postal services, stripping the very legislated exclusivity that the business rescue practitioners had built into the SAPO turnaround plan as one of its core intangible assets. He did this, Chairperson, just 3 days before his department's request for information proposal deadline closed. That means all those entities who were intending to propose on behalf of that exclusivity were caught off guard. Honorable Chairperson, the Honorable Minister has confused directive with deliverable. And then we are told, Honorable Chairperson, that the African National Congress is the obstacle to digital transformation. We are told that the African National Congress has failed our people. Let us unpack the story. I would cite just 2 examples. The 6,343 government facilities now connected under the SA Connect, the ANC built. The 32,055 Wi-Fi hotspots, the ANC built. And then on the other hand, the SABC bill, the AI policy, and the online safety framework all stalled, all fumbled under DA stewardship. The DA does not have a track record, Honorable Chairperson, of transformation because it has never believed in it. Let me repeat this. The DA does not have a track record of transformation because it has never believed in it. And to the Honorable Member on the MKP, a word in the same spirit. We implore you to start exploring realistic contributions in these engagements. We have grown weary of the daydreaming. Bring us scenarios that are improbable if you must, but not impossible. Engage with what is and not what you wish were. Parliament is not a fan fiction workshop. Honorable Chairperson, allow me to be unreservedly complimentary. The FPB's turnaround time is frankly world class. In its recent reporting period, the entity resolved 98.8% of public complaints and 98.6% of queries within the set turnaround time. Honorable Chairperson, I had a personal experience when an Islamophobic post had received a takedown notice within 5 hours on the long weekend. And more recently, an anti-Indian post received a takedown notice in 24 hours. Honorable Chairperson, in a state where so many entities struggle to answer the phone, the FPB answers, the FPB assesses, and the FPB acts. This is what a working public entity looks like. Honorable Chairperson, as I conclude, the African National Congress, of course, will support Budget 30, not because our Honorable Minister is doing a fantastic job, but because we will not allow South Africans to suffer. We will not hold South Africans hostage. Honorable Chairperson, the African National Congress will continue to fight for an inclusive digital economy. We will continue to build a strong public broadcaster, a financially included citizenry, and a state that leads transformation in the ICT sector. And our support, Honorable Chairperson, unlike the Minister's AI policy, is real. It is drafted by people, and it is read for people before it is tabled. I thank you.
Expired. Thank you. I now recognize the Honorable Minister to reply to his debate.
Honorable House Chairperson, thank you very much. First of all, thanks to all the members of the committee and those who contributed to this budget. There's been some valuable contributions from members, particularly those who participate consistently in the committee's activities. And starting with Honorable Maimane, as the chair of the Appropriations Committee, I'm comforted by the sentiment he shared around the need to increase the budget for this department, and we'll be counting on his support as the chair of the Appropriations Committee to ensure that that mission is fulfilled. And that is not only for the purposes of an increased budget. It is about a budget for impact, particularly to fulfill the socio-economic mandates that some of our entities have, particularly around access to universal access to broadcasting. In the other instances, Chair, I think as is often expected with these budget votes, there have been instances of misdirected rage, anger, and sloganeerism. That is expected, and that will not distract us. I think we have got a clear mandate and a clear mission to focus on, and that is what myself and the entire team in the department and our entities will be focused on. And we'll continue to account to the portfolio committee as we do and engage with them, because we firmly believe that where good ideas exist and where they can make a difference, particularly in getting more poor South Africans connected to the internet, we will embrace those and work together with anyone who shares our mission. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, that concludes the debate. You are reminded that the debate on electricity and energy budget vote, number 10, will take place at 16:45 on the virtual platform. The business of this virtual mini-plenary session is now concluded, and the mini-plenary will now rise. Thank you.